I am Daniel Juice, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book Now, Near, Next, no other than Miss Cynthia Benson Mercer.
It's good to be with you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Cynthia. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. Yes, I am a psychologist and recovered corporate leader. I was in the corporate business, corporate America for 35 years, mostly in human resources in a variety of industries, and always felt called to write a book. Always knew it would be about advancing women in the workplace and had the opportunity a couple of years ago, invited a thought partner and friend, Kimberly Rath, to join me. And since then have exited corporate America, and I've been focusing on executive coaching and really to help amplify women in the workplace, but also the men and others that ally and support them.
Miss Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world and, of course, empowering women all over the world. What is the primary goal of Now, Near, Next for the mid career woman?
Yeah, I think the byline that really sums it up is that we feel really passionate about women in particular starting to work on their future today. Our research suggested that we tend to put off investing in ourselves and investing in our careers and follow this myth that if we put our heads down, work hard, somebody will tap us and good things will happen. And we know that oftentimes when we have our head down and we're working hard, we miss opportunities. And so it's really an empowerment around women taking their agency back and taking a play out of men's playbook. Men are looking up; they're looking forward. We should be doing the same.
Equal people must be equal. So, how does the book define professional serendipity?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that has to be clarified is what is mid career. A lot of people hear that and they think midlife, right? So they come up with an age association of 40s or 50s, what have you. Mid career is age agnostic. It really is that 3 decades plus of time that you're just through that first hurdle of launching into whatever your career path is, and maybe you're raising a family or you're caring for a loved one or your community or your church. As women, we tend to pour ourselves into others, whatever that is. um, so it could be from 25 years old to 65 years old, and that band is growing. But it's that complex time where so much is asked of us in so many parts of our life, and we're still trying to have our professional career. So it's not age related and it's not status related. It's not middle management. It's women doing all kinds of career professions during that middle of life. And the serendipity refers to the fact that the women we studied all around the world, most of whom said their careers were luck, right place, right time. Um, Serendipity. It just sort of happened. The stars aligned. And while we know perhaps some of that to be true, we also know that when we're intentional about our professional advancement, we can avoid some of that restlessness that we might otherwise feel.
Definitely. What strategies does the book recommend for setting international career goals?
So, our methodology, really the now, near, next framework, is a methodology. And what we recommend is you don't wait for the kids to go off to kindergarten or graduate high school. You don't wait for the spouse or significant other to land their perfect job. Right now, starting today, you start working on your future. But you determine the pace. So you identify that aspirational next. What is my aspirational next? It could be a promotion. It could be a lateral move with more responsibility. It could be sitting on a board. It could be a certification. It could be a number of things, but you decide what is my aspirational next. And based on everything going on in my life, what can I do right now, even if it's only 7 minutes a day, to start moving toward that goal? And the methodology suggests that if your goal for your next is 3 years from now, just hypothetically, 2/3 of your time is spent in the now. It's the baby steps, the constant momentum getting toward that aspirational goal. And that last third is the near. And that's when you're really accelerating to your process. You're spending more time and you're ramping up to ultimately move to your next. The nice thing for women is it gives them permission to create their own timeline, but it takes away this excuse of putting it off. So you have to start right now, but you can determine your end date and you can start slowly and then build up the momentum.
Very well said. Miss Cynthia, very well said. I like it. So, how can a mid-career woman identify opportunities for international advancement?
Well, first of all, the world has, we've said this before, but the world has even gotten more flat and smaller post COVID. I know we often use that as the example, but the reality is jobs are mobile and transferable. Skills are transferable, and so we find that the barrier to entry of jobs is a lot less than it used to be, as more and more organizations are comfortable with people working all around the world. But the first thing is you need to identify what is it that you want next. What we want to be careful about is that we're not running from something, number one. And we're not just chasing volume, we're looking at value. What is the thing that is the right next step for me? And then, secondly, you have to put it into the universe. If no one knows what your aspirational goal is, no one is there to help you. No one is saying your name in the rooms that you're not in. So you find people that you trust and you create your sponsors in your network. And that has to be both in and outside of your organization and perhaps outside of your industry. But who are you talking to that you're taking to lunch or taking to coffee and saying, my aspirational next is this, my timeline is this. And you're somebody I trust, whose wisdom I respect, and I, would love any feedback. What happens is those individuals begin to advocate for you. They hear something that a neighbor or somebody at a holiday party or in their own business is looking for, and they now know that Cynthia or Daniel or Susie just mentioned to them they have an interest. Not knowing, people aren't mind readers. So figure it out what it's going to be, put yourself out there and start making the steps toward a plan.
Yes, making steps and plan, people. What practical tools does the book provide for career planning and progression?
So there's a couple of free things on our website that are really helpful in the planning process. And that is, we have a blueprint, and so you could create it in your own journal, but we have a PDF blueprint. You can download it, and it walks you through all of the steps. But most importantly, it's what is the date, what is the process of my now, my near, my next, and then really doing some introspection around your natural talents. What are the things that make my heart sing, that I'm naturally good at, that I do spontaneously? How do I find a job, a position, an opportunity that allows me to do more of that? And what are my skill and knowledge gaps? Because those are teachable. Documenting those, and we give you a framework to do that, a blueprint to do that, so that you can put pen to paper and start to create a true action plan around your goal setting for your aspirational next. The other thing we really call, in this case, women, although we've had many, many men who this resonates with as well, um, is to be very clear on your own sense of purpose and your own mission so that you're not chasing title or position or things, status, that you're really looking at things that are not only going to allow you to excel, but feel that personal sense of purpose and mission. And so there's a lot of time spent really being introspective and then putting pen to paper and following a plan.
Definitely follow the plan, people, for your success. So, Miss Cynthia, what how did you address common challenges faced in the mid-career woman?
Mhm. We find so there's a couple challenges that come up right away in our research over 30 women, 20 years of an age span, five race ethnicities, um, four countries, et cetera. So a really nice qualitative study in addition to some quantitative research. The first thing that a woman will say is, great, that sounds amazing. Where do I find the time? Right. So the very first thing we address practically are boundaries. How do you create healthy boundaries? Because everything does not have to be a priority. And it sounds really simple when you say it, but we provide a model that helps you think about how important is it to me and how important is it do I perceive it as externally, and then really looking at that from a matrix perspective and starting to say no to things that don't have the same value. So we start with boundaries to create time. Then we get very, very uh, introspective around natural talent and what really is the right next for you. But those things are just the beginning. We then have to address things like confidence and how do we show up and speak up? And who do we have supporting us in our corner? And how do we deal with risk? And when should we take risk? And ultimately, we really finalize with a whole health, a wellness, which says chase your career, chase your dreams, have your aspirations, do it in a healthy way, but check in regularly on your financial health, your spiritual health, your mental health, your physical health, because all of those things have to be attended to really have success, sustainable success in any other part of your life.
Certainly. What role does mentorship play in achieving career advancement according to Now Near Next?
Yeah, we when we think about mentorship, first of all, we address it in terms of really separating coaches, mentors, and sponsors. And so when we think about a coach, we're really looking at that very objective person that's going to ask provocative questions. It's helping us to sort of find our own way, not be advice giving, et cetera. And I'm an executive coach. I employ my own executive coach. I think that we all have to continue to build those muscles, and having somebody that's qualified to do that can be extremely helpful. Mentors, on the other hand, tend to be those that um, they probably are going to give you advice from time to time, and you would be seeking that advice and wisdom. They should be individuals that you are watching and learning. They're role modeling the kinds of behaviors, thoughts, feelings, behaviors that you would want to emulate in one way or another. And I think they're critical. And I think mentors come in all shapes and sizes, and you should be really open to a variety of mentors. Oftentimes, women and Black, Indigenous, and people of color um, desire to have at least one or more mentors that have similar life experience. And I think that's important. I think it's also important to subsidize, if you will, that with mentors that maybe have different life experiences where you can learn a different worldview from a different perspective. That makes us all more well-rounded when we have that diversity of thoughts in our mentorship. So critical in advancement.
How does Now Near Next explore balancing personal responsibilities with professional growth?
Mm, that's a big topic. We really hit that straight away in chapter one because, again, it gets back to women in particular have a great deal statistically studied of guilt associated with trying to balance personal responsibilities and professional growth. And women still statistically take on the lion's share of the caregiving and the whether you have children or not. We find someone or something to pour into and to take care of. And so because of that, there's often this tension that can take place. I think it loops back to boundaries, and that is having healthy boundaries around your work life and having healthy boundaries around your personal life. And it will never be, in my opinion, 50-50. I don't think there is work life balance. I think there is work and life, and hopefully you can have them work in concert and in synergy with one another. Sometimes one is pulling more than the other. But it really is this notion of letting go of the idea that we have to do everything that we're asked and recognizing there's a difference between volume and value. Women are the first to raise their hand. We tend to volunteer. We want to be of service. Not everything is a good use of our time. And it's hard to say no because we genuinely want to be helpful. So, I don't know that there's a magic answer other than being comfortable setting expectations and creating boundaries at work and at home.
Definitely. What advice does Now Near Next give for building strong professional network?
Well, a couple things. One is, and not everybody loves networking. So I think what's really important about building a professional network is you have to be intentional. If there's one word that, I've not done a word count on it, but I imagine it shows up hundreds of times. It's intentionality. That really is the premise and the backdrop behind Now Near Next. It's intentionality. And so you have to be intentional about building a network. It's easy to be distracted by everything else. And some people are just more comfortable with it than others. But in the world of technology, have a virtual coffee. Use LinkedIn as a way of finding like minded folks that have a shared sense of purpose, are in a similar industry, or in an industry or in a position that you desire to be in at some point. People are very willing to give of themselves if you ask them. If I were to say, hey, Daniel, you've been doing this podcast and I've been thinking I might like to do that someday. And would you be willing to spend 15-20 minutes with me and sharing with me, your best thinking about it? People feel honored when they're asked. And so building your network, honoring the people that you're asking, making sure it's reciprocal. And when you're building a network, people don't want to just be asked because they want something from you. So finding ways to have a reciprocal relationship, I think, is important. But the biggest thing is be intentional about it and find the way that works best for you so that you'll do it.
Certainly, 100%. So, Miss Cynthia, speaking of advice, what will be your advice for those aspiring writers out there?
For the who?
Aspiring writers out there.
Oh, aspiring writers. Oh, well, that's a good question. First of all, do it. I contemplated writing my first book, which is this one, for over 20 years. You have to have the time and the space, right, to do it. But if you have an idea and you have a unique point of view and position that's going to bring something to the world, I say don't put it off. Maybe that's your next, right? So your
Yes.
now and your next might be you just start with interviewing other writers and getting advice, and that could be a baby step in that direction. um I think the other thing I had to learn as I've even been contemplating a second book and starting to put together an outline is sometimes you just have to start by just writing, just pouring out whatever's on your mind, not overthinking it, not editing it, just getting words on paper because the flow comes, at least for me, in the process. Um, Otherwise, you kind of sit stagnant for a really long time, sort of, over engineering it in your mind. And get a great publisher. And if you can get great thought partners around you or people that you can interview, I always think that more minds, more ideas, more perspectives make a more rich end result, especially in a business book.
Definitely. Definitely. And stop procrastinating, people. If you have the passion to write, write, and be my guest. Like Miss Cynthia. So, how can women leverage their existing skills to create a new career opportunities?
So skills are oftentimes, and talents in particular, are transferable. I very often, as I'm coaching women, um, men and women for that matter, is don't put yourself in a corner. Don't put yourself in a narrow lane. All generally leadership skills are transferable. Skills and knowledge you can learn. So identify what you're passionate about. Figure out where that is, be it an industry or an area that you are that you think will bring you joy, and talk to people. Interview other people that are doing it. Learn more about it, but don't rule yourself out if it's an industry you haven't worked in or a department you haven't worked in. Those can be some of the most exciting challenges and career growth opportunities. I had a great mentor, and actually more of a coach than mentor, years ago, that said, you've been doing this a long time and you're kind of on wash and repeat. You're getting promoted into this job that's very different. Don't hearken back to all of the old toolkit. Build a new toolkit. And we help women and men do that. Women and the men who ally for them.
Miss Cynthia, what is your short term and long term goals in writing?
My short and long term goals. So my short term goals are really, our book has been out since March, and so we're on a movement. This is for us a movement. This is a late in career for me. It's an encore career for my thought partner and co-author, and we really want more women to look up and look forward. And so it's one life at a time. Longer term, I'm really passionate about allyship and sponsorship, and we created a companion guide for allies so that more men and others can really lean in and help women to live into their next. And I really feel that there's a book in there, Daniel. There's another book that's percolating around allyship that probably next year.
Looking forward for that, Miss Cynthia, and you are most welcome to come back and promote your follow-up empowering book. And what step does now near next outline for developing a global perspective on career growth?
Yeah, one of the things we talk about is worldview, and it's really important to ensure that you are seeking information, that you are looking for perspectives beyond what's in front of you. Part of that is looking outside your own organization. Part of that is looking outside your own industry. So for us, it's really about networking globally, and we had the benefit of doing that very early on, which has been terrific. My business partner has another business also that's has an office in Singapore, so we've been able to really network and expand there. And then the UK, people are very active on LinkedIn from around the world. Build those networks beyond your geographic walls. Um, it's amazing what doors that can open, and if nothing else, how how it changes your worldview when you can see things beyond the myopic nature of wherever you are today, whether that's in the US or someplace else.
What strategies does the book offer for navigating workplace biases or barriers?
Mostly we touch on that from the perspective of imposter syndrome. And so, what I think is unique about Now Near Next, and at least the position we've taken, is this is really about what the individual can do rather than finger wagging or changing society, the culture, norms, etc. We acknowledge them, we recognize them, but what we're saying is, what can we do in spite of these things to be more intentional, and control what we can control, which is ourselves. And so we look at that from really equipping women in particular to have more agency about speaking up, to have a voice about showing up, minimizing qualifying language, addressing um, conflict or behavior that's perhaps inappropriate. It really is addressed from the perspective of building the confident professional woman to have the ability, the backbone, the agency to deal with situations that hopefully don't occur, but we know still occur on too regular of a basis.
Definitely. So, to sum up our discussion, Miss Cynthia, how does Now Near Next empower women to create a sustainable and fulfilling long term career?
Well, I mean, it's not to oversimplify, but the belief is that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Yes,
The saying. We believe that's really practical. We believe that what's sustainable is continuing to grow and develop. Um, what our research found is women get stuck, stagnant, restless, and sometimes multiple times throughout their mid career. Again, it's 3+ decades. If I'm being honest, there were many times along the way I would feel stuck or stagnant. And by the way, with no judgment to the employer, oftentimes it was just I felt ready for something more. And if you are planning, if you're developing, if you're looking forward, if you're investing in yourself, you're constantly regenerating, you're constantly growing. You help to mitigate those chances of feeling stuck and stagnant and restless. And that's the longevity. That's the sustainability. What's not sustainable is feeling on Sunday night, oh my goodness, I can't believe I have to get up and go to work tomorrow morning. That's not sustainable.
definitely, Miss Cynthia Benson Mercer. Thank you so much for sharing your empowering book to our, most especially for women all over the world. So, Miss Cynthia, can you please invite our listeners to support your Now Near Next?
Yes, absolutely. So you can get all the versions of Now Near Next on Amazon or wherever books are sold. And follow us at zealoftheheel.com. You can also reach us for a free strategy session. Would love to spend time just learning about your career path and offering a free coaching session.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Cynthia because if you support her, more empowering books to come, more coaching to come. So, Miss Cynthia, thank you for your time.
Daniel, thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon. As I said, Miss Cynthia, you